Good morning, students. Let's continue the chapter, the Browning version. In the previous part, we had seen how a young teacher, Mr. Frank, and Taplow, a very smart student, how they had talked about Mr. Crocker Harris. Crocker Harris is a man of character, while Mr. Frank, he does not follow the rules and regulations of the school. Mr. Crocker Harris is a strict teacher. He does not share the result and he does not give any extra mark to the students. And Tableau is talking with Frank. Look, what time did Mr. Crocker Harris tell you to be here? 6:30, sir. Well, he's 10 minutes late. Why don't you cut? Cut means he should go away. He should disobey his teacher. See another quality, I would not say quality. See how a teacher is trying to teach a student to disobey the order of another teacher when he asked him to cut. You could still play golf before lockup. Really shocked. Oh no, I couldn't cut the crock, Mr. Crocker Harris. I shouldn't think it's ever been done in the whole time he has been here. God knows what would happen if I did. He'd probably follow me home or something. Now, Frank, he was trying to teach student that he should not wait for his teacher over there because the teacher was late by 10 minutes. Frank asked Tableau that he should go to play golf. He could enjoy, but Tableau was scared. When these words were said by his teacher, Tableau was shocked. Never ever he could think that he would disobey Mr. Crocker Harris. He told Mr. Frank that he couldn't think about that because if he disobeyed Mr. Crocker Harris, what would happen? He even himself didn't know about that because Mr. Crocker Harris's teacher who would follow him perhaps to his home for not obeying his orders. So you can imagine, students, Tableau is afraid of his teacher. He is not ready to leave the place. Even another teacher asks him that he should leave the place and he could enjoy while playing golf. The character of another teacher is revealed as well as you see Tableau has no dare to disobey his teacher. It means Tableau is a good student. Even after the support of the teacher, Mr. Frank, Tableau is not ready to leave the place. I must admit I envy him the effect he seems to have on you boys in the form. Form means class. You all seem scared to death of him. What does he do? Beat you all or something? Good Lord, no. He is not a sadist like one or two of the others. I beg your pardon. A sadist, sir, is someone who gets pleasure out of giving pain. Indeed, but I think you went on to say that some other masters. No, Frank does not like what what he does not like. He does not like Tableau is not ready to leave the place. He is following the order of Mr. Crocker Harris. This young teacher is jealous of that middle-aged teacher, Mr. Crocker Harris. And that's why he asked Tableau if he was so scared of him that he would kill him. How it could happen? How a teacher could affect the mind of a student that he did not become ready to leave the place? He asked him if Mr. Crocker Harris treated them badly, if he beat them all, and Taplow replied him. His answer was negative. He told the young teacher, Mr. Crocker Harris is not a sadist. Sadist is a person who gives pains to others and he feels pleasure while doing that. He told his teacher that Mr. Crocker Harris, otherwise, he is not a sadist who is not happy while paining others. But Frank was, when it was these words were used by Taplow, when he like one or two of the others, means while there are some teachers in the school who punish, who gives corporal punishment to the students, and they become very happy. Now Frank was interested to know the names of those teachers who are happy. Taplow, you know very well, he is a very smart student. He said, well, of course they are, sir. I won't mention names, but you know them as well as I do. Of course, I know most masters think we boys don't understand a thing. But, sir, you're different. You're young. Well, comparatively, anyway, you are science. You must know what sadism is. I have already told you how Taplow giving each and every smart answer to this young teacher. Whereas he does not mention the names of those teachers through his words, he does not tell the names of those teachers who punishes, who punish the teachers, give them corporal punishment, but by the same time he handles this young teacher saying that he is different, means he is not like those teachers who are or who have been called sadist. Because he is very young, he appreciates Frank, and after all he is a teacher of science, and science is very interesting subject according to Taplow. He appreciates Frank. So at the one side you see how Taplow is criticizing the teachers and their methods and how they are playing with the rules and regulations of the school, but he is by the same time pleasing this young teacher Frank, saying him that he is very well otherwise because he teaches science, right? Frank said, good Lord, what our school's coming to? Getting the answer of Taplow, Frank is surprised because he thought that Taplow easily would tell him the names of those teachers, but he had understood Taplow was not a student who could be handled his way. And that's why he prayed to God for this, what would happen to the school, because the students are very intelligent. Anyway, the croc isn't sadist. You will also see on one previous occasion also, Taplow has used the name of his teacher without honor. He said Croc, not Mr. Crocker Harris. In the beginning of the page, you can see it has been written Croc, but he corrected himself while pronouncing the name of his teacher. Again, he is pronouncing the name of his teacher, saying Croc, Croc. Croc is not a sadist, though he is appreciating Mr. Crocker Harris that he is not a sadist, but he is not pronouncing his teacher name properly, right? That's what I'm saying. He wouldn't be so frightening if he were. because at least it would show he had some feelings. But he has not. He's all shriveled up inside like a nut, and he seems to hate people to like him. It's funny that I don't know any other master who doesn't like being liked. Another matter came. Mr. Crocker Harris is not a sadist, this is what. But Taplow says that if Mr. Crocker Harris had been a sadist, that would have been better. At least he could judge he had some type of feelings. Otherwise, he had seen Mr. Crocker Harris had no feelings in his heart. Because whenever Mr. Crocker Harris finds any student has a liking for him and he withdraws his steps from that student when he says shriveled up inside like a nut, using a simile by the writer. He wanted to say that Mr. Crocker Harris is a teacher. When he finds any student has a liking for him, he withdraws his steps because he does not like that people should like him. The student should like him. But all other masters, as far as in the school they are concerned, they like that children, students, they should like them. This is only the teacher who does not like the liking of the students. That's really a funny thing, according to Taplow. Because teachers, they want that all students, they should be a big fan of them. But this teacher, Mr. Crocker Harris, is a different teacher from those teachers. He does not like that students should like him. And that's a funny thing about him, according to Taplow. Frank said, and I don't know any boy who doesn't use that for his own purposes. Well, it's natural, sir, but not with Croc. Mr. Crocker Harris. Taplow. Mr. Crocker Harris. The funny thing is that, in spite of everything, I do rather like him. I cannot help it, and sometimes I think he sees it, and that seems to shrivel him up even more. Now Frank said that now Frank is trying to cover what he is trying to cover. When Taplow told this young teacher that there are many teachers in the school who want that the student should like them and follow them everywhere. They feel pleasure by the by this activity of the student. But Frank did not like this thing said by Taplow. He said that if it is so by those masters or those teachers in the school, so the students they do not use their teachers for any purpose. Taplow is not sure about other teachers, but he said that Croc, first of all, when again he used this word Croc for his teacher, and it was made corrected by Frank, and he asked Taplow that he should take the name of the teacher in a proper way. Mr. Crocker Harris. Mr. Crocker Harris, and Taplow replied his teacher that Mr. Crocker Harris is a teacher, and Taplow, what he wants to say, in spite of the strict nature of Mr. Crocker Harris, because of the nature he had no feeling for his students. Mr. Crocker Harris does not like the liking of his students. Taplow announces that he has a great liking for Mr. Crocker Harris. When he says, I cannot help it, read the second sentence. I cannot help means he has no force within him that he should not like Mr. Crocker Harris. He has a great respect for Mr. Crocker Harris. Though he is scared of him, he is very strict. He follows rules. In spite of all that, Taplow shows that he has a great liking for Mr. Crocker Harris. And whenever he further explain to this young teacher, he explains him that if ever Mr. Crocker Harris finds that Taplow has started liking him, he shrivels him up, means he gets him away from Taplow. He makes a distance from his student. Right? I'm sure you are exaggerating. Exaggerating means saying something in exaggerated manner. When it was too much appreciated by Taplow, then Frank could not digest it because he was jealous of Mr. Crocker Harris, right? Taplow said, "No, sir, I'm not." Informed the other day he made one of his classical jokes. Of course, nobody laughed because nobody understood it, myself included. Still, I knew he had meant it as funny, so I laughed. Out of ordinary common politeness and feeling a bit sorry for him for having made a poor joke. Now I can't remember what the joke was, but suppose I make it. Now you laugh, sir. Frank laughs. Taplow in a gentle, throaty voice. Taplow, you laughed at my little joke. I noticed. I must confess that I am pleased at the advance your Latin has made since you so readily have understood what the rest of the firm did not. Perhaps now you would be good enough to explain it to them, so that they too can share your pleasure. In these lines, Taplow tells how his teacher, Mr. Crocker Harris, he deals in the class with his students. He shared an incident when Mr. Crocker Harris had told some joke in the class. In the form means class. He had cracked some joke in the class and which had not been understood by any student. But Taplow, he found it was a joke, that's why he laughed it, thinking that Mr. Crocker Harris would be very happy because no other student in the class had laughed at the joke cracked by Mr. Crocker Harris. And now Taplow is telling his teacher, Mr. Frank, how Mr. Crocker Harris deals in the class, right? And when Mr. Crocker Harris found Taplow had laughed his joke, he, with a great politeness, called him in front of all the students and he appreciated Taplow before the class, saying that he had understood the joke very well because he had a great understanding about language, this Latin language, and that's why Mr. Crocker Harris requested Taplow to share the joke with the other student of the class so that everybody could understand it and everybody should have a proper understanding of the joke, right? So this way Taplow expresses Mr. Frank how he has been dealt on one occasions when he had not actually understood the joke, but how he was handled by Mr. Crocker Harris. Means he is appreciating the methods adopted by Mr. Crocker Harris in the class. So this way he deals in a great politeness with his students, not by giving any corporal punishment. Right? The door upright is pushed open and Millie Crocker Harris enters. Millie Crocker Harris is the wife of Mr. Crocker Harris. She is a thin woman in her late 30s, rather more smartly dressed than the general run of schoolmasters' wives. She is wearing a cape and carries a shopping basket. She closes the door and then stands by the screen watching. Tableau and Frank. It's a few seconds before they notice her. Now the scene changes because Millie Crocker Harris she has entered in the scene. The writer has described what type of appearance she had. She was a thin woman. Her age had would have been about 30s, right? And she is smartly dressed. While other schoolmaster wives are not dressed in that way, she is wearing a cape, means a long garment, and she was carrying that time a shopping basket. She comes out, she closes the door, and she stands by the screen, and she also observes Tableau and Frank, who were talking over there. And now Frank had seen Millie Crocker Harris. Frank means teacher, that young teacher, and he had seen Millie Crocker Harris, means wife of Mr. Crocker Harris. She had come there. Now he said, "Come along, Tableau. Don't be so selfish as to keep a good joke to yourself. Tell the others." He breaks off suddenly, not seeing Millie. Oh Lord. Now Frank is again instigating Tableau to mimic the voice of his teacher and sharing that poor joke he had announced in the class. Though he had seen Millie Crocker Harris had come there, perhaps Mr. Frank he wanted to show the wife of Mr. Crocker Harris what type of behavior, what type of mind like Tableau or the other students have about her husband, which you can say another bad thing about the teacher, because he was trying to insult uh, Millie Crocker Harris through the student or through the words of Tableau, right? Now you see, he had seen Millie. Now Frank turns quickly and seems infinitely relieved at seeing Millie. He thought that Tableau would start saying and imitating the voice of Mr. Crocker Harris, and she would listen it, and thereafter she would come to know what type of respect students like Tableau they have for Mr. Crocker Harris. Frank again said, "Oh, hello." He said, "Oh, hello," means he is wishing the wife of Mr. Crocker Harris, Millie, without expression. "Hello," she replies in the same manner. She comes down to sideboard and puts her basket on it. Tableau, moving up to left of Frank, whispering frantically. Frantically means in a mad way. "Do you think she heard?" Now, Tableau, when he found Millie Crocker Harris was there, he became worried because for a long time they had been talking about Mr. Crocker Harris only, and for many times he had used croc, croc, croc for his teacher, and the way he was making fun of Mr. Crocker Harris while telling that incident of making a poor joke in the class, right? And he became worried. Perhaps Millie Crocker Harris she had listened their conversation, and she would definitely share it with Mr. Crocker Harris, and anything could happen to him. And that's why he asked from Frank, his teacher, if she had listened all those all their conversation or not. Now Frank told him, shakes his head comfortingly. Millie takes off her cape and hangs it on the hall stand. "I think she did," he said. Frank replied, perhaps she had listened, and she was standing there quite a time. He also made Tableau worried, saying that perhaps she had listened their conversation because she was standing there for a long time. Tableau, if she did, and she tells him, there goes my remove. Remove means he will not be able to get his result again if she discloses all the conversations she had listened from them, and he would not be getting once again his result. Frank, nonsense. He crosses to the fireplace. Millie takes the basket from the sideboard, moves above the table and puts the basket on it. Millie, to tableau. She calls now the student tableau. Waiting for my husband? Tableau. Moving down left of the table. Yes. Means he is hesitating while answering the wife of Mr. Crocker Harris when she wanted to know from Tableau if he had been waiting for her husband. And he replied positively. He said yes, he had been waiting for her husband, Millie. He's at the bursar's. Bursar's is a clerk in account office and might be there quite a time. If I were you, I would go. Millie also, like Frank, she also told Tableau because Mr. Crocker Harris had been busy with the clerk in the school, so he could take some time to reach to him. So Millie also told Tableau that if she had been at his place, she definitely had left the place. But Tableau is not ready for that, doubtfully. He said, most particularly, I was to come. He replied Millie that he had been specially called by his teacher. By his teacher means Mr. Crocker Harris. Well, why don't you run away for a quarter of an hour? Quarter of an hour means 15 minutes and come back. She gives some time. He could go for 15 minutes and she unpacks some things from the basket. She also unpacks some things from the basket. Supposing he gets here before me, Tableau is worried. He doesn't want to leave the place. He is afraid of Mr. Crocker Harris. By the same time, he has a great respect. What Millie, she said, smiling. Keeping a smile on her face, she said, I'll take the blame. She takes a prescription out of the basket. I'll tell you what, you can do a job for him. Take this prescription to the chemist and get it made up. All right, Mrs. Crocker Harris. He crosses towards the door upright. Millie gives Tableau a prescription. Prescription means a list whereon some medicines had been written perhaps. So she asked him to go to the chemist and bring all those medicines for Mr. Crocker Harris. And that would be a good job. And meanwhile, if he comes there and he would be looking for Tableau, she would be taking all the blame. Right? So this way she asked Tableau to leave the place, rather do a job for Mr. Crocker Harris. And this way she hands over that prescription to Tableau and he immediately goes to the door upright. So this way, students, you saw how Mr. Frank and Tableau, they talked about Mr. Crocker Harris, who has been a very strict teacher, but all his students, they have a great respect for him, right? And he is a teacher of principles. Teacher of principles means he follows the rules and regulations. While another teacher, who is young teacher, he does not like his subject, his students, he is jealous of another teacher, right? He instigate Tableau to disobey the teacher, and he wants to insult, rather, on one occasion when before Millie Crocker Harris, he wants to listen all those words which Tableau already had shared with him, right? So this is a part of play. Students, you will be learning all the question answer from this chapter, especially the 3 character sketch you will prepare from this chapter. Character sketch of the most important question, the character sketch of Mr. Crocker Harris, the character sketch of Mr. Frank, and the character sketch of Tableau. Right? Goodbye, students. Have a nice day.